to this computer. Okay. All right, so we are going to cover election data since it is election day, or actually election night was yesterday. So let me share this data first with you guys. And I'll share my screen a little bit.
Are you recording this live, and are you going to share this?
I am recording the Zoom session, and I can I'll just upload it to YouTube after, and I can share that.
Okay,
that works with you.
Okay, sure.
I'm not sharing my screen yet. I'm just typing your emails. Okay.
Yeah, I got the data.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So I just shared a data set that, yeah, this is just a Google sheet. And within this sheet, you'll see the year, the candidate for the Democratic ticket, the Republican tickets, and then some other data here that we'll talk through. This is stuff I sort of updated live during the session yesterday. But if you scroll all the way down, so if we look at some of this data, just so you can get a sense for why it is the way it is. I coded it with this thing called light red, light blue to sort of say who's hasn't confirmed yet or hasn't pushed Republican or Democrat yet. This column, this second column, is the number of electoral votes for that state. So what I think is really powerful about this idea of this visualization is that every state's not equivalent in terms of the number of electoral votes that they get. And so to be able to show that using like a stacked chart or stacked bar, I think is more valuable geospatially. And so that was sort of the main intent behind it. But ultimately, I think what we're going to be trying to build towards is something that looks like this. I'm sorry, I have different forms here, but basically gets a stacked charts to see how many electoral votes are needed. So we can see that bar where 270 is. So anything above that means you've gone over 270. And then if we can actually map them from there to see where these electoral votes are breaking down. And then lastly, we can remove the ones that are already sort of counted or the ones that already are not contested. And then we're left with just the ones that are these light red and light blue to really represent what's left of the electoral college and what needs to occur in order for someone to pull ahead. So yeah, any thoughts on this so far, or on the data that you've seen so far? Nope. Okay. So that's going to be the end goal. So I feel like I'm like this, Bob Ross or like paint by numbers, where it's like, okay, here's this like final image of what we're going to do. And then we're going to sort of just start with the data from scratch and build it from there. So what we'll do is I'm going to sort of shift gears and have either Adnan or Josh have you guys sort of share your screen, and we'll load the data together and sort of go from there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure. I can share the screen if you want.
Okay, sure, that works. Oh, and one thing just to show you, just because it's a little more fun. So we've been experimenting a lot more with how to chroma key this in. So Josh, you were sort of a bit of the inspiration on this front, but I feel like we're getting it a lot closer to being usable in a Zoom meeting, but to be able to show these live while we're talking, sort of newsroom style-esque.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I feel like we're getting closer. So we can talk through more of how to do that a little later too. But all right. So Adnan, you are sharing your screen. Perfect.
Yeah. Do you see my screen?
I do. Yes. And so the first step will be on that Google Sheets to download it as a CSV file.
Yeah, I already did that. So connect the data.
Yep. And I think you downloaded as an Excel file, if I'm not mistaken, just from seeing what the. download is
So,
SX, but if I'm wrong, correction.
yeah, I download as an Excel file. Let me download it as CSV.
Yep. And then Jim, if you want to follow along as well in the build, you're more than welcome. Yep, there you go.
Yep, will do.
Cool. All right. And Josh, were you able to download it as a CSV from this Google Doc?
Yes, I got it in. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Cool. So some of the things to note on the Google Sheet itself, you'll notice that I added a column called color. Part of the reason we do that is that it allows, it just makes it easier to have more granular control over the colors that you're selecting. Right now, when it comes to categorical variables, we can assign a color scheme to a bunch of them, but we don't have the specificity to be able to assign specific colors to specific attributes like Republican or Democrat that make more sense if it's like blue or red, things like that, if that makes sense. Oh, looks like we lost that on. So anyways, that's the intent or the purpose behind this color column. And so as we go through, this will start to make a little more sense. And so while Adnan's rejoining, Josh, do you want to share your screen and we can sort of start
Yes.
that first view?
Yes. Give me one moment.
Mm-hmm.
Got it?
All right. Great.
Can you see it?
Oh, yeah, I can see it. Sorry, I was looking at
Okay.
it. Great. So you uploaded the data. Perfect. And so with the end goal as sort of the first step. So this first step is basically a categorized chart here. And so what we're going to want to do is, create a swarm. You got it. Create new. Yep. And you can actually leave the name alone. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I lost the connection because my battery just died on me.
Oh, no worries. All good. Okay. So we haven't got too far done. We're just, so Josh is sharing his screen and you uploaded the CSV file and then added the swarm. So let me know where you are, Adnan.
Yeah, so data sources CSV file. Yes, I'm on the same page.
Okay, great. So this is going to be the big difference here. So right now, every row of our data set is just state, number of electoral votes, and some other stuff. And so instead of point per row, we're going to be doing point per value. And the value is going to be from the Excel sheet, the electoral votes. So now every dot is an electoral vote. So this should be all the electoral votes that exist. And because we have 3 different elections in this data set, it's more dots than we need, but or there'll be more dots there. But hopefully that helps understand how that point per value metric is used, as opposed to the point per row. Does that make sense conceptually?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Cool. So let's start to order this. So under chart type, we'll change that from random to categorized columns. And the category, I believe, is party. Got it. Yep. And then it's, oh, that's right. So this was something I had to go into to sort of fix in the data, so to say. So some of the nuance here is that if you click back on the data set, you'll notice that in this column that we have labeled party, I have these light blue and light red, but really I want those stacked on top of Republican and Democrats, as well as I only want to show this year's election, so 2020. And so I'll talk through how I did that. But
I have a simple question.
Mhm.
Navigation. How do I get this to move? How do I get my camera to move straight up?
Yeah, so the one unfortunate thing is when we implemented orbit controls, it always is going to orbit around the origin.
Okay.
And the only way to get it to move up or to like strafe the camera up is to actually take the swarm and move the swarm down in position. Or we turn off orbit controls and we put it back onto the fly controls, and then you have more granular control over exactly where the camera's pointed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
But yeah, that's definitely a pain point we might want to address.
You said I can get out of swarm and then do it when I turn off a global, what's the word? I know
Yeah,
what it
you
is.
turn off orbit controls. So if you go to
Orbit, thank you.
settings and
If I turn that off, I can move, okay, and then come back to it.
Yep, and then to go up and down, it's the R and F keys. So basically go up and down. Yep. Cool. So what we'll do is if you go back onto the swarm. Yep. The first thing I did was the number of points per column, I made 9. And the reason I made it 9 is because it's 270 electoral votes to win. And so 270 divides by 9 nicely. And that's hence the reason to do that. Under the category column, if you can, instead of selecting party, I believe the column to select is called index. Perfect. I can go through more in this in detail. And then let's scroll down a little bit. We probably want to make these a little wider so that the spacing will up the spacing between the points and the column gap, so that these are a little thicker, so to say. So with spacing between the points of, yeah, there we go. That looks good. And then if we up that column gap as well, just a little bit. Yeah, that works. And then the actual size of the dot, I personally find 0.005 to be too small. So I like to put 0.015. It's sort of like my baseline value that I think works well. Yeah, so I think that works. And then for color, we want the colors to be, instead of a single value, we have this in the actual Excel sheets or in the CSV. And so we can do column in data and then column color. And so
that's why is that the reason why you added that new column?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I added that column because I wanted more granular control over the colors. And we don't have the ability yet to be able to say like, all right, for Democrat, choose blue, for Republican, choose red. Instead, if we just add that value into the Excel sheet directly.
How did you get the color code?
So the color code, if you type into Google, just like hex blue, you'll get the hexadecimal value for these. Or if you just type in like blue.
I'll jump in on that. So we're just using a CSS parser. So you can type the word blue or aqua or orange, lowercase, any CSS value. If you're doing thousands of points, you will want to do like 0x, then the hex value, because if you're doing thousands and thousands of points, we have to go through the little CSS parser each time it comes up. So just to be clear, if you've got a small number, you can just type in pretty standard colors. If you're concerned about what those are, just type CSS colors into Google and it'll give you the list of names of colors that will match.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So the one additional thing we're going to want to do on this swarm is to add a filter. So right now it is showing data for 2020, 2016, and 2012. And so we're going to filter and then create a new filter. And then the column is year. And we'll want it to set equal to 2020. Perfect. Cool.
So this is letting whatever data on the CSV matches this information pass.
Correct. Yes. Yep. And in a moment, we'll add another criteria. There's so there's a small detail of how this shows up, which is if you look up that you can see like the light red and the light blue is showing up on the top of the bar, which is good, right? It's sort of showing like what's left. And this is not apparent because we don't have the ability to subsort. There's a bug in that right now. But how we can do that manually is to actually sort the Excel sheet. And so by sorting the Excel sheet such that all of the data we want on the bottom of this is at the top, and then anything we want towards the top of the chart is at the bottom, that's how it's going to line up because it goes based in order of how it sees the data points top to bottom. I don't know if that makes total sense, but if you're seeing this where the colors don't line up exactly how you want it, just let me know and we can address it. Okay, cool. So we set the first part of the visual, at least the swarm portion. The next step is really just to add the map in. And so for that, if you click on map and create new, and then instead of having a world, we're just going to select the US, which will be a flat map here. And you'll notice that it starts in a position and orientation that's based on the camera position. And so if you scroll down, what we're going to want to do is actually have that map basically be flat or on the map. And so to do that, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the positioning. And for the positioning, let's go ahead and set the rotation. Yep, and then for that, we're going to want to rotate on the horizontal axis by -90 degrees. And you can also, almost got it, so -90, there you go. And so I just know that, but you can always play around with those numbers until you get it to a position you want. And then I'd also bring it down a bit, which you can do by just grabbing that green arrow and dragging the map down so that it's sitting below the fields. Perfect. And I think for mine, I actually have it just a little bit in front of it as well. And so you can use that blue arrow, which is a little hard to grab because it's actually being obfuscated by the map itself. Or you can use the position triggers. Yeah, that's good. And then the other things you can do, you can change the colors of the map as well. So right now you'll notice that there's a blue ocean basically. And so you can set that to be completely transparent if you want. So you don't have to show that, as well as you can change the colors of the map itself to whatever appeals to you.
This here?
Yeah, so that's the background color. And so if you change that, you'll see where it updates. And if you want to get rid of it, you can just set the background opacity to 0. Perfect, and that just gets rid of it. And then the fill color, we can just leave it at this gray color, but that's something you can update as well as the outlines, whatever colors. Sort of.
Wow, cool.
Nice. Oh yeah, dark green or something.
Okay, I should not drag.
Yeah, so I've noticed that as well. If you drag, it actually goes through like every iteration loop, and some, especially if you have tons of points, it will bog it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Awesome. All right. So first step is pretty much complete. There is a line that I've added in to show the total number of electoral votes. This is going to be it's a little bit of a workaround, but this will be good to go through just so you can see it. So what we're going to do is add some text into this. And so we add new text by clicking on text over on the left-hand side. Create new. Exactly. And then this goes based on the position of the camera, which we're going to want to push it back to essentially be on the same plane as that data. So wait until it sort of looks like it goes through it. There it goes. And so as you'll notice, it can sometimes be deceiving. And I always try to push it in that direction, then rotate the camera and take a look at where it is. Because then we're going to want to probably push it to the left as well now. But at least you have the depth set correctly. Perfect. And then I think I labeled this 270 electoral votes needed to win. Something like that. So 270 electoral votes. Perfect. And then if you want to hit enter after votes, just so it goes to 2 lines, might be just a little easier to see it that way. Perfect. All right. And then if you can just bring that, yeah, there you go. And then up just a little bit as well, so that the center of it straddles that very top line, basically. And it'll make more sense in a minute. And I noticed this as well. It's hard to get the vertical selection because you can't look up necessarily, and then things get in the way. But that works. There you go. Nice. Yeah. And if you can actually bring it down just a little bit so that the very middle of it, there you go. Well, it'll make sense in a second why we'll do this. Perfect. Yeah, that works.
Is there?
Yeah, that's perfect. So if you can click duplicate on that text, which will duplicate the text, and then if you basically pull that over to the right and put it essentially at the same height, but over to the right, yeah, you got it. Yeah, these are some of the little things to sometimes zooming out also helps to make it a little easier to push and pull around. There you go.
I zoom out when I'm having problems interacting with it. We'll add some more controls over your canvas size in the future, but yeah, zoom out is helpful, and then you can zoom back in.
Yeah, as well as if we could maybe the overlay text thing to not have it in the way.
Yeah, you can turn that off. So if you go to the steps tab, there's a checkbox which will turn off that overlay text, because we're not going to use it for this presentation anyway.
Yeah.
So steps, and where it says show step, yep, uncheck that. There you go, it's gone.
Perfect.
So I duplicated the same text, and when I'm trying to move one of these tags, the second one is also moving at the same time. How do I take care of that?
Sure. I think likely what happens is that there's underneath positioning, it either is going to say fixed or relative. Does it say relative alignment or fixed alignment on that text? And you can share your screen as well if that makes it easier.
It says alignment center.
Yeah, a little further down on it. Actually, if you could just share your screen real quick.
You cannot start sharing screen while the other participant is sharing.
Cool. Okay. So if you scroll down on the right-hand side, Oh, wait, it does say, okay. Huh. Do me a favor and just save and refresh real quick. I did it. Yeah. Nice. Okay. And then if you select that text again, and scroll down. Okay, so it says fixed position. So if you move the text around, okay, so it's moving independently now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for whatever reason, what was happening is that the positioning, for whatever reason, was being set to relative. So underneath that drop down, there's fixed and relative positioning. I highly recommend keeping it at fixed positioning. And the only reason being is that relative positioning is powerful, but when you have multiple nested text elements, it actually bogs down the system in a pretty bad way. Okay. And so for now, we just try to keep everything as fixed position. So.
Okay, and how do I bring this camera in the front? Is it by going to the set camera?
Actually, that's going to be once you have the camera in the right position. If you click the reset button, which is actually in the top right-hand corner, just to the left of save, that will reset where the camera is. So it's going to put it at 0, 0, -1, and then facing down the z-axis. And then from there, you can put it in sort of the spot you want, and then click on set camera. And that will set the camera position for flat screens. Yeah. But for that step, not for all the steps.
Oh, okay.
It looks like the text is on a different plane than that bar graph, which you can sort of do by moving it around and trying to get it into the right spots. The other thing you can do is just use the actual coordinates, the position, because typically that graph, for instance, I know is going to be at 0, 0, 0 in terms of like the base of it. So if you just set the position to be 0, 0, 0 and then move it from there, it helps to keep it on the same plane.
Which one? The one on the position right here?
Yeah. So to do that, if you hit that minus sign just to the right of each of those, it will, so 0, 0, and 0. Yep. And so you'll see how that's at the very base of it. And so now it makes it a little easier to just move up, left, right to get it into the spot you want. One other thing that we more recently changed, just so you're aware of, is that text will no longer animate between steps unless you tell it to. So it will always stay in the position that you keep it in across steps, unless you check that box that says animate between steps when you then, move between steps. So
I'm gonna jump in here. So something that you're doing, I think that you're doing, is that you're moving the text by rotating the object using the orbit controls, and you think you're moving it, but you're actually not. And that's why you thought they were connected. So actually click on that green arrow or the little white boxes around inside of that text. Do you see what I'm talking about? And then drag that, and you'll actually move. Yes. No, you're moving the orbit controls as opposed to, okay, yeah. You want to move the object. You got it now. You see how that's different than just wiggling the orbit controls?
Yeah.
Perfect. And I think that's why you thought the two were connected earlier, because it looks like they're moving together when you're moving the whole objects around the orbit. Perfect.
Got it.
all right. So for that one, you're probably going to.
I think I'm missing what relative positioning means in this case. Relative to what?
Yeah. So let me show something real quick. Or actually, let's just do it live. Actually, Josh, can you share your screen real quick?
Yeah.
Then you can stop sharing yours, and then we'll switch gears, switch spots. Okay, so let's just give you as a case example. So let's click on one of those text elements and click on duplicate again. Perfect. So you've duplicated it, and then underneath positioning, if you click on, instead of going fixed and you click on relative, it's going to be relative to whatever you want it to be. And so typically you want it to be relative to like another text object. So in that selection box, so it's aligning, the left, right, or center. So that little gray box underneath is where you actually select the object to be relative against. So if you click that little like arrow looking thing, or yeah, you can just type it in. So you can have it be relative, say to text 1 or text 2. Probably make the most sense. And so what you did there is it's relative to text 2 and it's putting it right at the center. So the horizontal alignment is in the center. And if you click, you can play around with it to click on the left, right, and you'll see what that does. So you see how it's moving it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Great.
So you can do the same thing then for the height. So how it goes vertical as well as the depth.
Got it.
So it's very powerful. However, it also bogs down if you start to have 10 things that are relative to each other, because it actually, it had some really bad performance issues. So we try to just encourage people to keep things fixed for now. And so we can just delete that text object. So the new thing to show this week is that we're going to add a line. So if you click on line, which is over on the left-hand side, and then create new. And so this essentially connects to objects that you have. And so we're going to select the first object, which is text 1, and then the second object, which is text 2. And it creates a line. I don't know if you can see it. It starts out quite faint. It might be a default value case that we want to up. So on that width, let's go ahead and just make that like 0.1. Yeah, that works. And so you'll see that line that basically goes between these two. And so to get it at the right height, which is basically just below that top line of dots, and this is something I just manually counted basically, is how you can get that set so that the line is in the right spot. The other way you can do it is actually change the offset start and end. So in the offset start and end, you can adjust those up and down. So in this case, we'll probably want to pull it down. There you go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where am I going?
You should be going just right below that very first line of dots.
Oh, got it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, down here.
Nope. You had it right. So I don't know if you can see my screen. It's like right here.
Right here?
Yeah, exactly. And so you're gonna want to put the same number then for the offset end. So you can either manually move it or just type in the number basically. Sometimes those little things can be a little finicky. Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. So obviously these are one of those things where there's multiple ways to skin the cat, right? on how to do this. You can move the offsets, or you could actually just keep those at 0, 0, 0, and just move the actual text object up and down, and that will change the position of the line. But the trick here, sort of how I got this to look the way it did, is that second text object I just made invisible. So I just turned off the visibility on that text object so that it only says 270 electoral votes needed to win just once. And so if you select that second text object and then just click on visible on this step. So yeah, that checkbox right there, you go. So that's yep, you got it. So now it's basically invisible on this step, but we can still see the line. Yep, cool. All right, so first.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you're using this as a way to get the line.
Exactly. Yep.
Got it.
Basically a little bit of like a hack because the line has to connect to another object.
Yeah.
And a text object is just the easiest one to manipulate and sort of set.
Okay, but the line, when I created and connected both the text 1 and 2, the line is going in between the bar chart, like it's not straight. How do I make it straight?
Sure. You want to share your screen again? It's going to be based on where those two text objects are. So that's going to be the key thing to look at. So let's take a look. So it looks like you might have 3 text objects, if I'm not mistaken. So underneath second object, instead of clicking text 2, click on text 3. I think you have a stray text out there.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you make that a little thicker, so like the width to be 0.1. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good job. And then, okay, cool. All right, so we have built that first visualization. We're using point per value, which hopefully resonates. We added a filter to be able to filter that data set just to what we want to show. So now the next step is how do we, and this is something, or so I'm showing sort of on my video screen here, but essentially this idea of like, how do I make it look like these dots are coming off of it and then going onto the map. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What you're seeing? Okay. So how to do that is, and let's go ahead and, so Adnan, for yours, just to make it a little consistent on, if you click on map, let's just rotate that map 90 degrees so that it's flat. And to do that, you scroll down to rotation and set the horizontal to -90. Yeah. And one other thing to note is that maps can move between steps, which oftentimes makes it really hard to work with. And so I always hit the thing that says apply position to all steps, and that will make sure that the map doesn't move between steps. Because even though you updated the rotation on this step, you'd have to actually go back to every other step to apply that rotation so that it shows up that way.
So should I click apply position to all steps?
Yes. Yep. Perfect. And so then what we're going to do is click on swarm. And we're going to duplicate this swarm. And so if you click duplicate, basically we put the same exact swarm on top of itself. One thing, it's a little, I just, because this is a little more experimental, not experimental, but we've had some issues with, you'll notice that perspectives doesn't show up after you duplicate. So if you just hit save and then refresh the flow, it just makes sure that it's loaded right. So this is just to ensure that we're still on the same page. That I don't think it causes issues, but yeah. And so if we go back to that step, perfect. So now let's click back on swarm. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this. We're going to add a new perspective. And actually, sorry. Well, no, this works. Yeah, so add a new perspective. And we're going to call this one like states or map. But basically, we're just going to have the dots come out of this categorized view and transition to the categorized columns. And so to do that, we're going to click on type categorized columns. Oh, and actually, sorry, before we do that, let's add a step. I forgot to add a step. And then while you're on this step 3, change the perspective back to defaults so that that step has the default perspective. And then we're going to click on step 4 by clicking on that little railroad track with the timeline on the very bottom. So now we're on step 4. And then on this perspective, on this step, we want to change the perspective to states. And now we're setting the perspective of states. So to do that, underneath type, change that from categorized columns to map from regions. So we're going to tell it to use map 1.
I'm sorry, I
Sure.
think I don't know if I messed something up or I'm only seeing you now. I'm not seeing Adnan's screen. Is his shared?
Yeah, it's still sharing. Adnan, if you want to just stop sharing and then share again, sometimes that just will kick it back out or kick it off.
Oh, there's everybody. Yeah.
Still here
Yeah,
for you.
Zoom is kind of messy. I also was struggling with it for quite some time.
Okay. I was really worried. What happened? Everybody's gone.
We're all here. All right. Well, now you have volunteered to distribute unintentionally. So we're gonna have you share your screen now, Josh.
Oh, I see how it is.
It's okay.
Well, you will now know that I'm behind.
It's okay. Oh,
I just added a step.
okay.
Um,
Perfect.
This is what I have.
Cool. So, so if you click back on Swarm, and do you have 2 swarms, or is it just this one swarm?
Just the one.
Just the one? Okay. So let's click on duplicate. Yep. And then on this, just save and refresh for me, just as a precaution. And the only reason I do that is that sometimes duplicating has some known issues at times, and so
Should
yeah.
I wait for the green flow update countdown?
Yeah,
before I do
typically we'll
things?
get to that too as well. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So if you can click on step 2 now. Perfect, good job. And then click back on Swarm. And we're gonna add a new perspective to this first swarm. We could do it to the second swarm as well, but it actually makes more sense to do it to this first swarm, and I'll tell you why in a second. Okay, and so for this, we're going to do chart type map to region. Yep. Yep. Exactly.
So Michael, let me ask you, you're doing this so that, you can have 2 swarms, which is why you're duplicating it. One swarm is for showing the Republicans, Democrats, and the second one is to show the regions on the same swarm itself, right?
Yeah, it's basically to help have that effect of like the data coming out of that column chart and onto the map. You could just, if you turn off swarm 2 in this instance, Josh, it'll just turn off like the bars in the back. But my personal perspective is that I like having both of them in the scene. But that's the reason why we're doing 2.
Got it.
Yeah. Cool. So now we have it mapped. So this view actually is kind of interesting because it just shows, sort of that basic view, which is sort of a flat map with flat data on it to say who's gone where. But it doesn't give you that height, which is the number of electoral votes for each of these states. And so in order to do that, we're going to click on that stack button, which is underneath, which is in the chart type. Yep. Perfect. And you'll see these rising from the ether. And you can adjust that layer height to basically make them taller or shorter.
How did you get that layer height? I don't see that option.
There's a button called stack right underneath offset.
Okay.
And that will start that stack. Right. And then, hey, Jason, are you there?
Yes.
Do you know if Grid is working on states?
No.
Okay. Grid we will cover a different time, but for now we'll just leave these as these height bars. But yeah, we basically made that second step now. And so now we can see like, how this actually maps out, right? And so let's add one more step here. And on this last step, what we're going to do is actually filter it again and remove a little bit more of the noise, which are the states that have come back now to be confirmed.
Michael, before you do that, is there any possibility to add the state symbols like CA for California and NJ for New Jersey?
Almost. So I think what you want is, are you imagining that like at the top of each of these bars, you see like a state logo? So it's persistent?
Yeah, either
Or-
on the top, or if it's gonna mess it and look messy, then at least on the map itself, on the base.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So there's two ways to do it. One involves going back to the data, but one thing we could do is if on this swarm, if you scroll down on the right side and go to on rollover or on select, and what we're going to do is just have the state be selected, and so that way, when you click on, if you click run on the very top, and then if you roll over any of these dots, you'll see the state come up. So we found that to be really effective when you have lots of points, because if you could imagine you have all these points and you want to add a label to each of them, that actually just adds more noise and confusion. But by having this on rollover, it allows you to have a little bit more, have that granular sense, but it's more exploratory.
Yeah, this is more cleaner than putting all the names there.
Yeah, so that's what I would recommend. We'll cover labels at a different point in time, just because that involves actually going back to the data set and setting a different parameter, because you need to tell it which dots to actually show the label on. Otherwise, it's going to try to show a label on every single dot, which will look rough.
Yeah, this looks pretty clean. I love this.
Good, cool. Great. And so let's add one more step now. And this last step is just this filter. So we're adding to that filter that we had in place already to now show just those sort of regions of interest, so to say. And so for that, Josh, what we'll do is click on add step.
Do I click on this first?
It actually doesn't matter yeah, it doesn't quite matter. Great. So you added a step, and then it didn't automatically go to that step. So if you click on the trail, yeah, exactly. So now we're on step 3. And then if we go back to the swarm, and swarm 1 is selected, which is the one that's on the map, and we're going to create a new perspective. We can just call this like a filter 2 or something like that. There you go. Great. And so the only thing we need to do on this is if you scroll down on the scroll down to the filter and expand that filter section. So you'll see we have a filter that is saying 2020, and so we want to add another filter. And the logic for this is not going to be or, but instead it's going to be and. And it'll make more sense in a second, but let's go ahead and do this. So show row when columns, and if you can click on that, and it's called, I'll show you in the data, because this is actually a little bit of a workaround, but click on subsort, and subsort between 3 and 5, or 3 and 6, sorry. Okay, sorry, I think it might be 3 or 2 and 5. Try those.
Subsort starts from 1 in the data.
Oh,
1 and 5.
sorry, if you're gonna have to change the logic there. So instead of at the top saying or, change that to and. Yeah. Okay, and then if you can change the 5 to a 6, I think it might have been. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let me explain that real quick. So if you look at the data, and I'll just share my screen to share this real quick. Okay, so if we look at the data itself, what we're trying to do is do a compound filter. So the first thing we're filtering on is to say we want to look at just 2020, and then we want to and that with something else. And what we really want to do is to say, and I also want you to look at just the light red and the light blue. But we don't have the ability at this point to be able to add multiple parameters that have an and then a or, because I want it to be 2020 and light red or light blue. So because that's a compound statement, we can't quite do it that way. And so instead, the workaround is to create this new column, which essentially just adds a number to these. So instead of having it be a categorical variable, we're adding a number to each category. And so by doing it and having these next to each other, essentially I'm doing the same filter, but instead I'm saying if it's basically if it's a 4 or 5, that it's okay to show, and then everything else hide. And so all the just ones that say Democrat are 2, all the Republicans just say 1. And I think actually we used to have gray where there wasn't a count yet, and that was a 3. And so hence, if I just show any 4 or 5s, that will filter the data. So it's a little bit of a nuance there. Let me know if that makes sense. But that's sort of compound filtering.
How long did it take you to get this compound filtering? I know you were kind of, spending so much time on this yesterday, right?
Oh, yeah, I was, it's sort of like you run into a problem, you try to figure out a solution behind it. And I was originally trying to add that filter for light red, light blue, and I couldn't get it to work. And so that's when I just added this number into it. And so for all of these, and this is Adnan sort of, he's way better at Excel than me. Top notch, but I just do a very simple VLOOKUP for all of these.
Okay.
So this is where I added the colors, right? So the colors are showing as just the hex value here that's tied to the different categories. And then I also have the Republican Democrat. This is that index column. And then this is a numeric value, so we can do that filtering. So these are
when you apply this filter, Michael, on Flow itself, why are you subsorting this data between 2 and 6? Why is it not 5 and 6?
It should be between 3 and 6, so that just 4 and 5 are selected. Does that make sense?
Yeah, gray and light red and light blue. Yes, 3 and 5, 3 and 6.
Yeah, and when it's between, the between is not inclusive, meaning that the numbers you put there are not included. It's less than or greater than.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Greater than or less than. Okay. Cool. So yeah. So anyways, that I think soup to nuts is the whole flow, and it's exactly an number. So
yeah, this is amazing.
Cool.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's the election flow, and then yeah. So that was sort of fun to build, to visualize, and hopefully gives you a different sense for some of the different attributes, the point per value, adding filters, adding text, adding lines. Yeah, so any thoughts, any questions or other areas to sort of to talk through?
I'm seeing it as definitely just it's helpful to go through more things. It seems to be that I'm rarely running against one specific thing that I'm having trouble with. It's just I guess needing time with the tool.
Sure.
And you slowly get comfortable with it over time. So this is helpful.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's just and I loved actually the example you kept bringing in, Josh, where it really is just the number of reps, right? It's like how many times you do something versus like trying to master it the first time you do it. It's just, as you build more flows, you just get more comfortable. You start to learn the nuances. And yes, there's going to be things we need to update and change along the way, but that's exactly why we want you guys in the platform, because the stumbling blocks you encounter is going to be the same thing everyone else encounters. And however we can try to work around those or come up with different ways to solve it, I think the better. So, if you're, I very much encourage you guys to reach out if you run into issues and stuff like that, because that's going to be how we learn and adjust things.
Wonderful.
Cool. And then one last thing, so Jason, just to note, I actually found out last night. So the lines don't work in AR mode. I don't know if it just puts it in a weird spot. So just
Okay.
It must not be catching the offset, the AR offset correctly. Got it. Note taken.
Yes. Cool. So yeah, that's SuperNut building a flow here. So thanks for joining, guys, and hopefully this was beneficial. And I'd really encourage you to, if you're thinking about any specific flow that you're building or data you're working with, happy to work with you on those stories and yeah, go through this iteration cycle.
Yeah, Mike, if you have some time, either tomorrow or Friday, I need to work on one of my previous flow that I was trying to create. I'm still struggling with it. So if you can give me some time and, we can go over it with it.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll send you a little link that goes to my calendar.
Okay, that would be cool.
Wonderful. Yes, I'll be sending you something very soon as well.
Okay.
I'm working on a small project.
Josh, are you planning to create any TikTok based on this? Because this is something super hot at the moment, and everybody would be amazed to see something like this. I'm thinking of launching a video.
Go for it. Go for it. I don't know that I have something specific in mind at the moment. No, not at the moment. No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely use and
I suppose I should get with the times and do things that are current from time to time, but I'm just very I don't tend to be current events very much. So but it is useful to be able to do something that is timely.
And what's your TikTok handle? Let me just add you there.
Josh Terry Plays.
Okay, Josh. Okay, I just followed you.
Wonderful. And yours?
Analyze this.
Yes.
All thanks to Michael, Jason, and Jim, for, this product is amazing. Every time you guys come on the camera, you just amaze me with it.
Thanks. It's great to have super fans like yourself.
Thank you.
Really feels good for us. So I really do appreciate it.
Yes, I'm enjoying this. It's a really neat experience.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. And hopefully I think we're going to try to just keep this on a weekly basis, just ongoing training. So if you guys want to keep jumping in, love to keep having you guys on. And yeah, we'll keep evolving the training, and bringing more people. And yeah, that's how we'll keep pushing this forward. So thanks for joining.
Wonderful. I'd love to do more.
Awesome.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Right. Hey, Jim. So I know we have a meeting now, so we can just stay on here if you